On the night of April 3, 2026, a two-seat F-15E Strike Eagle assigned to the 494th Fighter Squadron of the 48th Fighter Wing at RAF Lakenheath in England was on a combat mission over southwestern Iran, deep inside enemy territory, when Iranian air defenses acquired it and fired. A shoulder-fired surface-to-air missile struck the aircraft. Both crew members ejected successfully. The aircraft was largely destroyed on impact. And within minutes, Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps forces and local civilians began converging on the crash site. Tehran announced a bounty of 10 billion tomans, approximately $60,000, for the capture of American aircrew. The race to find the two downed Americans had begun. What followed over the next 48 hours was one of the most complex, most dangerous, and most consequential special operations missions in American military history. And at the center of it, in ways that would only become clear on the morning of April 6th, was the B-2 Spirit. The pilot came down inaccessible terrain and was rescued within hours of ejecting. That rescue was not easy. Two hydrogen hydride 60W Jolly Green, two combat rescue helicopters of the Personal Recovery Task Force, were hit by Iranian ground fire during the extraction, wounding crew members aboard. An A-10C Thunderbolt II providing close air support also took Iranian fire during the pilot rescue and was forced to egress the area over the Persian Gulf, where its pilot ejected safely before the aircraft crashed. But the pilot was home within hours of the shootdown. The weapons systems officer, confirmed by President Trump as a highly respected colonel, came down in a very different place. He was in the Zagros Mountains in Kogaluye, Boyar Ahmad Province, southwestern Iran. The Zagros Mountains are not forgiving terrain. They are ancient, fold and thrust mountains with ridgelines reaching thousands of feet above the surrounding valleys, populated by Bakhtiari nomadic tribesmen who are armed, deeply familiar with the terrain, and who had now been publicly offered $60,000 to find and turn over the American. IRGC forces and affiliated Basij militia units cordoned off the region and began a systematic search. Iranian state media ran the bounty announcement on a loop. The weapons systems officer, armed with only a pistol and his survival vest, made a decision that probably saved his life. He climbed. He hiked a 7,000-foot ridgeline into the mountains and found a crevice in the rock face high above the valley floor where he could conceal himself and wait. He was injured, likely having hurt his ankle either during ejection or landing. He was alone, surrounded, and in one of the most hostile environments on the planet. He restricted the use of his emergency beacon to brief, infrequent transmissions to minimize the risk of Iranian electronic detection. When he did send a signal, he sent a short radio message that reached American forces. He said, "God is good." That message and the careful management of his beacon signal gave American intelligence and military planners something to work with. But confirming the signal was genuine and not an Iranian trap designed to lure a rescue force into an ambush required more than the beacon alone. That is where the CIA came in. The Central Intelligence Agency had already launched a deception campaign inside Iran, spreading word through channels accessible to Iranian security services that the weapons systems officer had already been found and was being moved on the ground for exfiltration out of the country. The purpose of this campaign was to redirect Iranian search efforts, buy time, and plant doubt inside Iranian command networks about where to concentrate their forces. Whether the campaign fully succeeded is unclear. What is clear is that IRGC and Basij units were actively hunting the colonel in the mountains, and the local nomadic tribesmen were conducting their own parallel search, motivated by the bounty. The CIA then reportedly used specialized technology and the unconventional assisted recovery process, which involves contacting civilians inside hostile territory who are willing to assist American forces, to confirm the weapons systems officer's location in the mountain crevice. Once the agency confirmed his location and verified that the beacon was not a trap, that information went to the Pentagon, to the Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, to Chairman of the Joint Chiefs General Dan Kane, and ultimately to the President in the Oval Office, where Trump had been receiving constant updates throughout the day on Saturday, April 4th. The rescue operation was authorized. What it required was massive. The force assembled to bring the colonel home included hundreds of United States Special Forces operators and military and intelligence personnel. SEAL Team 6, the Naval Special Warfare Development Group, which is the same unit that conducted the raid on Osama bin Laden's compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan in 2011, was the ground maneuver element. Delta Force operators and Army Rangers were on standby as a reserve force. Air Force pararescuemen, known as PJs, and combat controllers embedded with the rescue package to provide close air support coordination from the ground. The rescue package itself comprised 155 aircraft total. That number includes 4 bombers, 64 fighters, 48 aerial refueling tankers, and 13 rescue aircraft, alongside surveillance, command and control, and electronic warfare platforms. MC-130J Commando, 2 Special Operations Transport aircraft from the Air Force Special Operations Command, carried the SEAL Team 6 operators and the recovery force. HH-60W Jolly Green, 2 combat rescue helicopters, provided the final phase personnel recovery capability. AH-6 Littlebird helicopters from elite aviation units, likely the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment known as the Night Stalkers, provided close escort. At a forward operating location established inside Iran, American forces had pre-positioned at an abandoned agricultural airstrip 14 miles north of Shahreza city in southern Isfahan province, a strip measuring approximately 200 feet wide by 3,900 feet long. This was an improvised forward operating base deep inside enemy territory, established specifically to support this rescue. Nothing like the infrastructure at a conventional airbase. Just a patch of dirt in a field large enough to land special operations aircraft and get out again. The CIA launched its deception campaign prior to the ground phase. The agency spread the word inside Iran that the weapons systems officer had already been found and was being moved. The goal was to cause IRGC commanders to redirect their search forces away from the mountains and toward the area where the CIA claimed the exfiltration was happening. Roads leading to the actual extraction zone were struck and cratered by American aircraft and drones to physically prevent Iranian reaction forces from entering the area. Iranian news agencies later posted photographs showing massive traffic jams of Iranian security forces attempting to reach the extraction zone, blocked by bomb craters in the road network. MQ-9 Reaper drones protected the colonel himself by striking Iranian military-aged males believed to be a threat who got within 3 kilometers of the airmen. U.S. Air Force jets conducted strikes against Iranian forces to prevent them from reaching the area. B-1B Lancer bombers dropped approximately 102,000-pound bombs during the rescue operation to suppress Iranian forces across the broader operational area, striking roads, IRGC garrisons, and infrastructure nodes to prevent reinforcement of the forces hunting the colonel. The ground phase of the rescue is described in available reporting as a massive firefight at the extraction site. SEAL Team 6 operators airdropped from multiple aircraft into the area around the colonel's position, located him, secured the extraction site, and reached him in the mountain crevice. They rushed him to a helicopter and transported him to the forward airstrip inside Iran. Then the mission hit an unexpected complication. The nose gear of one of the AFSOCC-130s, either an MC-130J or a combination of an MC-130J and HC-130J depending on the account, became stuck in the sandy dirt of the improvised airstrip. A second transport also became unable to fly, either from the same problem or another reason. With stuck aircraft at an exposed forward operating base deep inside Iran, and with IRGC forces converging on the area, American commanders made the call. They ordered replacement aircraft forward from the standby contingency force, which flew in, and they ordered the 2 stuck transports destroyed on the ground. The aircraft were rendered inoperable and burned, ensuring that no sensitive equipment, communications gear, or classified material could fall into Iranian hands. The entire personnel recovery task force then exfiltrated Iran on the 3 newly arrived aircraft. No American service members were killed during the rescue operation. The weapons systems officer was alive, injured but walking, and on his way home. President Trump posted 2 words on Truth Social: "We got him." He described the mission as the most daring operation in United States history. The scope of what the IRGC had committed to finding and capturing that one American colonel is important to understand. The Revolutionary Guard had deployed ground forces across Kogalua and Boyar Ahmad province, mobilized Basij militia units, circulated the bounty announcement to nomadic tribesmen across the mountains, and reportedly activated multiple intelligence assets trying to track the beacon signal. For approximately 48 hours, a very significant piece of the IRGC's attention, manpower, and operational focus in the region, was dedicated to finding one man in the mountains of southwestern Iran. CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper understood something that Iranian commanders may not have fully appreciated in the moment. An enemy whose eyes and attention are drawn to mountains in the southwest is an enemy whose command network is temporarily more vulnerable in other places. Specifically, places like the underground bunker near Tehran, where IRGC commanders were gathered. This is where the B-2 enters the story. Fox News chief foreign correspondent Trey Yingst reported on the morning of April 6, citing high-ranking United States sources, that while the rescue of the weapons systems officer was ongoing over the weekend, CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper directed a strike against an IRGC underground headquarters in an underground facility near the Iranian capital of Tehran. Fox News has learned, Yingst reported, that B-2 bombers were used during this strike, along with massive ordnance penetrators, bunker buster bombs, the same weapons used in Operation Midnight Hammer. And I am told by these high-ranking United States sources that the headquarters of the IRGC was obliterated in that strike. Cooper ordered the B-2s to fly round-trip from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri after receiving time-sensitive intelligence about the location of a large number of IRGC commanders inside the underground bunker. The intelligence window was narrow. The window during which the IRGC's attention and defensive awareness was concentrated on the rescue operation in the southwest was the window in which the B-2 mission could be executed with the greatest probability of success against a target that might otherwise have had better early warning and a more dispersed command presence. A senior military source told Fox News simply, "We delivered the heat." B-1B Lancer bombers dropped approximately 102,000-pound bombs during the rescue operation to keep Iranian forces suppressed in the southwest. The combined noise, the air activity, the drone operations, the strike aircraft, the electronic warfare, the signals traffic of a massive rescue package involving 155 aircraft in southwestern Iran created exactly the kind of electromagnetic and operational environment that consumes Iranian military command attention. And while that attention was consumed, something invisible crossed Iranian airspace at high altitude, heading for Tehran, and something buried under several meters of reinforced concrete ceased to exist. The B-2 Spirit did not appear on Iranian radar. No Iranian surface-to-air missile battery fired at it. The IRGC commanders who might have ordered such a battery to engage the inbound threat were, according to Fox News reporting, in the bunker that no longer existed after the strike. The timing, the targeting, and the coordination of all of this across multiple simultaneous operations, from special forces in the Zagros Mountains to bombers over Tehran, was the product of an intelligence and command architecture that the United States has spent decades building and billions of dollars sustaining. It is what makes the combination of a rescue operation and a strategic strike not just possible, but operationally logical. The rescue was real. The rescue needed to happen, and it did happen. But it also, deliberately or as a consequential byproduct, focused Iranian military attention on one place while American stealth aviation struck another. That is the story of April 3rd through 6th, 2026. A crew got shot down, a colonel climbed a mountain and survived. SEAL Team 6 flew into Iran and brought him home. And somewhere between those two rescues, on the night of April 4th going into April 5th, the B-2 flew from Missouri, dropped the same bombs that destroyed Fordow, and obliterated the IRGC underground headquarters outside Tehran. No one on the Iranian side saw it coming. No one on the Iranian side fired at it. And no one on the American side got killed. That is the B-2 Spirit in 2026. Now let us understand why that aircraft, and only that aircraft, could do what it did that night. To understand what makes the B-2 Spirit capable of what happened over Iran, you have to understand the core philosophy behind its design. The B-2 is a flying wing. That phrase describes its most immediately striking feature, the characteristic that makes it look unlike any other aircraft that has ever flown operationally. Where every other bomber in history has had a fuselage, a tail section, vertical stabilizers, and a recognizable long body with wings attached to it, the B-2 has none of these things. It is all wing. Its entire body is a single blended flying wing shape, 172 feet from wingtip to wingtip, 69 feet from the leading edge to the trailing edge at the center, and only 17 feet tall. That wingspan of 172 feet is wider than a Boeing 737 is long, yet the aircraft's length of 69 feet creates one of the most extreme aspect ratios ever flown. Standing next to one on the ramp, the proportions are genuinely disorienting. The brain keeps searching for the tail section and cannot find it. This shape is not an aesthetic choice. It is the result of an engineering optimization around a single requirement. Get inside the most heavily defended airspace on the planet, deliver weapons, and come back. Everything about the B-2's flying wing configuration serves that mission. The absence of vertical surfaces eliminates one of the largest radar return contributors on any conventional aircraft. Tail fins and vertical stabilizers on a conventional bomber are enormous radar reflectors. Remove them, as the B-2 design does, and those reflections disappear. The smooth, continuously curved leading edge, swept at 33 degrees, deflects radar energy away from the source rather than returning it to the receiving antenna. The trailing edge features a distinctive double W-notched shape that scatters radar energy in controlled directions. Every external surface is part of the stealth solution. The B-2's radar cross-section is reported to be approximately 0.1 square meters, roughly equivalent to a small bird. To understand what that means operationally, consider that the B-52 Stratofortress has a radar cross-section orders of magnitude larger than that. The B-2 can be seen at ranges of 20 nautical miles or less under most radar conditions. At such ranges, an adversary's reaction time is so compressed that even detected, the B-2 may already have released its weapons before a defensive engagement can be mounted. The aircraft achieves this through three integrated approaches: shape, which we have already discussed, materials, and operational technique. On materials, the B-2's skin is primarily composed of carbon graphite composite mixed with titanium, materials that are less electrically conductive than metal, and therefore less reflective to radar energy. On top of this base structure, the most reflective areas, including the intakes, flaps, and leading edges, are coated with radar-absorbent material. This coating has been repeatedly reformulated and improved across the aircraft's operational life. It is applied with extraordinary precision, using specialized, stealthy screws with classified geometry to fasten panels without creating radar return points. There is a dedicated technical manual solely for the removal and reinstallation of these screws. The crew chief maintaining a B-2 works from more than 1,000 technical orders. The coating is highly sensitive to environmental conditions. Rain can damage it. Temperature extremes compromise it. This is why every B-2 in the world is stored in a specialized air-conditioned hangar, and why Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri is the only base that has the full climate-controlled infrastructure required to maintain the coating in operational condition. Every 7 years, the coating is carefully washed away with crystallized wheat starch so that the airframe surfaces can be inspected for damage, then reapplied from scratch. Monthly maintenance cost for each B-2 aircraft runs approximately $3.4 million per aircraft, driven significantly by the demands of the coating. A full elastomer layer, an elastic rubber-like polymer applied over the entire external surface, smooths away all seams, screws, joints, and material transitions that would otherwise create detectable radar return points. Every gap between panels is treated as a potential vulnerability and sealed. On operational technique, the B-2 does not fly in full stealth mode at all times. When operating in non-contested airspace, it flies more freely. When approaching defended airspace, pilots perform what is informally known as stealthing up, a set of classified procedures involving configuring all systems, closing all apertures, and managing the aircraft's emissions. The Defensive Management System, a network of sensitive antennas distributed across the airframe, detects hostile radar emissions from hundreds of miles away and generates a real-time threat picture that the crew uses to route the aircraft through the gaps and weak zones of the adversary's radar coverage. By staying within those zones where the aircraft's narrow radar cross-section is most effective, the B-2 crew ensures the aircraft never crosses the point at which radar strength would be sufficient to generate a reliable tracking solution. The burn-through zone, the point at which a radar could, in theory, overwhelm the B-2's stealth qualities, is approximately a 20 to 30 mile radius around each radar source. The B-2 crew stays outside it. The engines are central to the B-2's multispectral stealth, and they represent one of the most sophisticated pieces of propulsion engineering ever integrated into a combat aircraft. The B-2 is powered by 4 General Electric F-118-GE-100 turbofan engines, each producing 17,300 pounds of thrust. These engines are non-afterburning by design. Afterburners increase thrust dramatically, but they do so by injecting fuel directly into the exhaust stream, creating a large hot plume that is visible to infrared sensors and generates an unmistakable acoustic and electromagnetic signature. The B-2 accepted a maximum speed of approximately Mach 0.95 in exchange for a dramatically reduced infrared and acoustic profile. The engines are buried deep within the wing structure, not in external pods. Their intakes are mounted on the upper surface of the wing. These S-curve serpentine intake ducts are lined with radar-absorbent material and prevent radar energy from reaching the engine compressor faces by bending the air path in a way that eliminates line of sight between the exterior and the fan blades. The exhaust exits over the upper surface of the wing through V-trough carbon tiles in the aft section, with secondary inlets mixing cold boundary layer air with the hot exhaust to rapidly cool the thermal plume before it separates from the aircraft. The wing itself acts as a physical shield between the exhaust heat and ground-based infrared detection systems looking upward. The F-118 engines are derived from the F-110 family and use approximately 40% fewer parts than comparable fourth-generation military engines, a design choice that reflects the emphasis on reliability and maintainability for long intercontinental missions. The B-2 has an unrefueled range of approximately 6,000 nautical miles, with a single mid-air refueling that extends beyond 12,000 miles. With multiple refuelings, the range is effectively unlimited, bounded only by crew endurance. The aircraft carries provisions for extended missions, including camp beds for sleeping in shifts, a toilet, food storage, and a microwave. 2 crew members, a pilot in the left seat and a mission commander in the right, manage a highly automated aircraft in which one can rest while the other maintains watch. Approximately 80 pilots across the entire fleet are qualified in the aircraft at any given time. The B-2 flies at a maximum speed of approximately Mach 0.95 and can reach altitudes exceeding 50,000 feet. That ceiling is operationally significant. Many surface-to-air missile systems have effective engagement envelopes that fall below 50,000 feet, meaning the B-2 can fly above those systems or use altitude to compress the geometric threat envelope. The aircraft navigates using GPS as its primary system, backed by a star-oriented inertial navigation system for GPS-degraded environments, and a terrain recognition backup that matches imagery of the terrain below with stored reference data. The primary sensor is the AN/APQ-181 multifunction radar, upgraded from its original mechanically scanned array to an active electronically scanned array under the Defensive Management System Modernization Program. In its upgraded form, the radar provides terrain following, synthetic aperture mapping for target imaging, and air-to-ground ranging, operating in low probability of intercept modes that minimize detectable emissions. The weapons capability is the reason for all of it. The B-2's 2 internal weapons bays, located within the blended wing body, carry an official payload limit of 40,000 pounds, though in operational history the maximum ordnance load has reached 60,000 pounds. This flexibility means a single B-2 can carry any combination from the following: up to 8,500-pound GPS-guided JDAM bombs in a single pass capable of striking 80 separate aim points simultaneously, up to 16 2,000-pound GBU-31 JDAMs fitted with BLU-109 penetrator warheads for hardened underground targets, up to 8 5,000-pound GBU-72 advanced penetrating bombs, a relatively new weapon that sits between conventional JDAMs and the Massive Ordnance Penetrator in capability and effect. The AGM-158B Joint Air-to-Surface Standoff Missile Extended Range, cleared for the B-2 in late 2024, giving the aircraft the ability to release weapons from well outside even the most advanced surface-to-air missile engagement envelopes. Or 230,000-pound GBU-57B Massive Ordnance Penetrators for the most deeply buried and most heavily hardened targets on the planet. The Massive Ordnance Penetrator deserves detailed examination, because it is the weapon that has defined the B-2's strategic purpose in the Iran conflict. The GBU-57B measures 20 feet and approximately 5.5 inches in length and 31.5 inches in diameter. It weighs approximately 30,000 pounds total, of which approximately 5,300 pounds is explosive fill, including approximately 4,590 pounds of AFX-757 high explosive and approximately 750 pounds of PBX. The weapon's steel casing is designed to survive the impact of hitting reinforced concrete or rock at terminal velocity, maintain structural integrity, and continue driving downward through the hardened material for a calculated penetration depth. The large penetrator smart fuse initiates detonation only after the weapon has reached the target depth or penetrated the structural layer it was designed to reach, so that the explosive effect occurs inside the facility rather than on its surface. The designed penetration depth is approximately 200 feet through rock or reinforced concrete. To put that in context, 200 feet is roughly the height of a 20-story building. The Massive Ordnance Penetrator buries itself 20 stories underground before it detonates. And when it detonates, the confined underground space converts the explosive energy into structural collapse, ground shock propagation through the rock and concrete, and pressure wave effects that propagate through connected tunnels and chambers. The goal is not to create a crater on the surface. The goal is to destroy what is underground. Against facilities like Fordow, where Iran had built uranium enrichment centrifuge halls deep inside a mountain specifically designed to survive aerial bombardment, the Massive Ordnance Penetrator is the only non-nuclear weapon capable of reaching and destroying the operational infrastructure. The guidance system combines GPS satellite updates with an inertial navigation backup for environments where GPS may be degraded or jammed. During Operation Midnight Hammer, imagery analysis indicated a deliberate double-tap technique in which multiple MOPs were dropped sequentially down the same entry points into the Fordow facility, effectively drilling deeper with each successive weapon. 12 MOPs struck Fordow and 2 struck Natanz during that operation. The B-2 is the only aircraft in the United States Air Force inventory currently configured and certified to carry the GBU-57B operationally. Each B-2 can carry 2 MOPs internally. No external carriage option exists. The weapon must be carried internally to preserve the aircraft's stealth configuration, which means the bomber can ingress through defended airspace, release the MOPs, and egress without the external carriage signatures that would betray a conventional aircraft to radar. The B-2 and the MOP were designed around each other. One without the other is incomplete. Following Operation Midnight Hammer, the Air Force awarded Boeing a sole source contract exceeding $100 million to replenish the GBU-57 inventory consumed in that operation, covering new tail kits and all-up round components, with delivery beginning in January 2028. The Air Force stated the action was critically needed to restore operational readiness. That reconstitution effort is currently underway, meaning the inventory of massive ordnance penetrators available for the Iran conflict reflects the pre-Midnight Hammer stockpile, minus the 14 dropped in June 2025, plus whatever programmed production had added before the contracts for additional units awarded in early 2026 deliver their first items. The B-2's nuclear capability is equally part of its strategic identity. In the nuclear role, the aircraft can carry up to 16 B-61 nuclear gravity bombs, including the B-61-12 guided variant equipped with a tail kit for GPS-aided accuracy. The B-2 was the first aircraft in the Air Force inventory certified for the B-61-12, making it the leading edge of the nuclear triad's airborne leg. Air Force Global Strike Command, established in February 2010, has management authority over both the B-2 fleet and the nuclear-capable B-52 fleet and the nation's land-based intercontinental ballistic missiles. A United States Air Force assessment has stated that 2 B-2 Spirit bombers armed with precision weapons can perform the role of 75 conventional aircraft in certain mission categories. That force multiplication ratio reflects the B-2's ability to operate in environments conventional aircraft cannot enter, strike with accuracy that conventional area effect weapons cannot match, and reach underground facilities that no other conventional weapon can destroy. When General Dan Kane told reporters after Operation Midnight Hammer that no other country on planet Earth could have pulled off the operation, he was making a statement about this specific combination: the stealth, the range, the payload, and the MOP. No peer adversary possesses all 4 elements simultaneously. Sustaining the B-2 fleet costs approximately $3.4 million per aircraft per month in maintenance. The 7-year depot overhaul cycle, conducted at Air Force Plant 42 in Palmdale, California, takes each aircraft out of the combat-coded fleet for an extended period. At any given time, 3 or 4 B-2s are at Palmdale. Each overhaul involves stripping and reapplying the entire radar-absorbent coating, inspecting and replacing wiring with embrittled insulation, and conducting structural and systems upgrades. The aircraft require climate-controlled storage at all times, in $5 million specialized hangars that maintain the temperature and humidity conditions necessary to preserve the coating's performance. Whiteman Air Force Base, the only B-2 home station in the world, has invested in the infrastructure to support this requirement over decades. Now let us trace the history of how the B-2 Spirit came to be. In the mid-1970s, the United States Air Force was confronting a strategic problem. The Soviet integrated air defense system had matured to the point where penetrating it with existing bomber designs appeared increasingly impossible. The Soviet air defense forces operated a layered system combining ground-based radar networks spanning millions of square miles of Soviet territory, mobile and fixed surface-to-air missile batteries capable of engaging targets at extreme altitudes, airborne warning and control aircraft directing interceptors in real time, and an interceptor force equipped with increasingly capable supersonic fighters. Against this system, the B-52 was increasingly vulnerable. The B-1A program, intended to replace it, had been canceled by the Carter administration in 1977 partly because of promises from a new classified technology. American military planners needed a different answer. The classified research that would lead to the B-2 was already underway before the ATB program formally began. DARPA had started the Experimental Survivability Testbed project in the summer of 1975, awarding contracts to both Northrop and Lockheed to explore stealth airframe configurations. Lockheed won the second phase of that competition in April 1976, leading to the HAV Blue program and eventually to the F-117 Nighthawk stealth attack aircraft. Northrop lost that competition but continued classified stealth research through a separate program known as Tacit Blue at Area 51, developing low observable principles using curved surfaces, composites, and fly-by-wire controls in ways that directly fed the thinking behind the B-2. By 1976, the technology base had progressed to where a long-range strategic stealth bomber appeared viable. The question was whether engineering could deliver it. In 1979, under President Carter, the Advanced Technology Bomber Program was formally launched. The program was funded under the classified codename Aurora. The competition was narrowed to 2 teams, Northrop with Boeing and Lockheed with Rockwell. Both proposed flying wing designs. The Northrop proposal was codenamed Senior Ice. The Lockheed proposal was codenamed Senior Peg. Northrop brought to this competition something unique: a direct institutional connection to the flying wing tradition of Jack Northrop. John Knudsen Northrop, known everywhere as Jack Northrop, was one of the most visionary aircraft designers of the 20th century. His obsession with the flying wing concept drove him for decades. In the 1930s and 40s, Northrop built experimental flying wing aircraft, culminating in the piston-powered Yttrium Boride 35 and the jet-powered Yttrium Boride 49, both of which flew in the late 1940s. The Yttrium Boride 49 had a wingspan of 172 feet, the same as what would become the B-2. It also had a radar cross-section that observers at the time noted was remarkably small. The Yttrium Boride 49 program was canceled in 1949. The Air Force set aside the flying wing in favor of conventional designs. Jack Northrop spent the rest of his life believing the decision had been wrong and politically motivated. In 1980, with the Advanced Technology Bomber program underway and Northrop's design a serious contender, company executives showed Jack Northrop a scale model of what would become the B-2. He was 85 years old, in a wheelchair, largely unable to speak following a stroke. He wept when he saw it. He died in February 1981, not knowing whether his vision would fly, but he knew it was being taken seriously. The B-2 Spirit made its public appearance 7 years after his death. On October 20, 1981, the Northrop team's Advanced Technology Bomber design was selected over the Lockheed Rockwell design. The design received the designation B-2 and the name Spirit. The Air Force was planning to procure 165 aircraft. In 1979, Northrop designer Hal Markarian had produced a sketch of the aircraft that bore remarkable similarity to what was eventually built. The design was refined over subsequent years through computational fluid dynamics analysis, radar cross-section testing on scaled models, and extensive wind tunnel evaluation. A critical decision was made in the mid-1980s when the mission profile was changed from high-altitude penetration to low-altitude terrain following, driven by assessments that improving Soviet radar technology was making high-altitude flight increasingly detectable. This redesign required substantial changes to the aircraft's structure and avionics and delayed the first flight by approximately 2 years, while adding roughly $1 billion to the program cost. By 1989, approximately $23 billion had been secretly spent on B-2 research and development, much of it hidden within classified budget accounts unknown to most members of Congress. The aircraft was publicly revealed for the first time on November 22, 1988, at a carefully staged rollout ceremony in Palmdale. The ceremony was designed to show the aircraft from the front only, revealing the bat-like silhouette while concealing the trailing-edge design that embodied the most sensitive stealth engineering. Thousands of people saw the B-2 for the first time that day, and the images circulated worldwide. Nothing like it had ever been seen before. On July 17, 1989, Northrop test pilot Bruce Hines and Colonel Richard S. Couch flew the B-2 on its maiden flight from Air Force Plant 42 in Palmdale to Edwards Air Force Base. The flight lasted 2 hours. It was the first time a flying wing aircraft had flown over the Mojave Desert in nearly 4 decades, since the yttrium boride 49 flights of the late 1940s. The aircraft performed exactly as designed. The first production aircraft, Spirit of Missouri, was delivered to Whiteman Air Force Base on December 17, 1993. The B-2 reached initial operational capability on January 1, 1997. During the intervening years, the B-2 program was battered by the end of the Cold War, which eliminated the primary strategic justification for the aircraft's enormous cost. The original plan for 165 aircraft was reduced to 132, then to 75, then further through successive budget battles. In his 1992 State of the Union address, President George H.W. Bush announced that B-2 production would be limited to 20 aircraft. In 1996, the Clinton administration authorized conversion of a 21st aircraft, a prototype test model, to fully operational Block 30 status. That was the final B-2 ever built. The 21 aircraft completed represent a total program cost of approximately $44.7 billion, meaning each aircraft cost an average of $2.13 billion when all development, testing, and procurement are included. Adjusted to current dollars, that average exceeds $4 billion per aircraft, making the B-2 Spirit the most expensive military aircraft ever procured by any nation in history. That cost reflects not just the aircraft itself but the decades of classified research, the unique materials science, the specialized manufacturing tooling, the climate-controlled infrastructure, and the relentless engineering investment required to maintain a fleet of stealth aircraft capable of penetrating the most advanced air defense systems ever built. The Block 10 configuration, delivered first, retained basic nuclear capability but lacked full conventional weapons integration. Block 20 added GPS-guided conventional weapons capability and the initial integration of joint direct attack munitions. Block 30, the fully operational configuration first fielded in combat at Kosovo in 1999, incorporated advanced fire control software, digital interfaces for JDAM integration, improved radar processing, and a more resilient defensive management system. All B-2s were eventually upgraded to at least Block 30 standards. The Spirit Realm Software Factory, established in recent years, introduced an open mission systems architecture enabling faster integration of new weapons without the traditional multi-year acquisition cycles. The B-2's combat debut came on March 23, 1999. NATO's Operation Allied Force, the air campaign against Slobodan Milosevic's regime in Yugoslavia over the Kosovo crisis, began, and the B-2 was there on the first night. 2 Spirits flew nonstop from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri to Yugoslavia and back, a round trip of more than 30 hours. They were the first combat strikes in aviation history to be flown directly from the continental United States and back, without landing at any forward location. Each aircraft carried 16 JDAM-guided bombs. The B-2 was also the first aircraft in history to deploy GPS satellite-guided JDAMs in combat, transforming what precision bombing could mean. Where previous bombing campaigns required multiple aircraft dropping multiple unguided bombs to achieve a reasonable probability of hitting a specific point, a single B-2 with 16 JDAMs could strike 16 separate aim points in a single pass, each guided to within a few meters of its coordinates. Over the 78 days of Allied force, B-2 Spirit bombers flew approximately 1% of total NATO sorties, yet delivered approximately 11% of the total munitions, all with pinpoint accuracy and no combat losses. 2 aircraft did the work of 22 in terms of effects delivered per aircraft committed. By the time Allied force ended, the B-2 had dropped 500 bombs in Yugoslavia. One mission in Allied force became a profound political incident. On May 7, 1999, a B-2 dropped 5 JDAMs on the Chinese embassy in Belgrade. 3 people were killed and 20 were injured. The United States government attributed the strike to a targeting error, in which the embassy's address was incorrectly mapped against a target database using outdated CIA maps and inadequate coordination between intelligence and targeting systems. China rejected this explanation, and the incident severely damaged United States-China relations for years. The CIA director at the time resigned shortly after. The targeting failure was a serious institutional failure of the intelligence-to-targeting process, not a failure of the aircraft or its weapons systems. The next combat deployment came in October 2001. Operation Enduring Freedom, the American campaign against the Taliban and Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan following September 11th. On October 7th, B-2 Spirits flew strike missions against Taliban infrastructure in the opening hours of the campaign, flying directly from Whiteman Air Force Base to Afghanistan and back. The longest combat mission in the B-2's history to date was flown during this campaign, 44.3 hours in October 2001. Major Melvin D.I. and Captain Brian Neal flew Spirit of America for that mission, one that required multiple aerial refuelings and crew rest and shifts using the aircraft's built-in rest provisions. A forward staging arrangement at Naval Support Facility Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean enabled crew swaps that extended the aircraft's operational availability. Over the course of Operation Enduring Freedom, B-2 Spirits flew more than 40 sorties in support of the opening phase of the Afghanistan campaign. 2003 brought the Iraq War. B-2 Spirit bombers participated in the opening shock and awe campaign of Operation Iraqi Freedom beginning March 19, 2023. During the Iraq War, the B-2 conducted 49 total sorties, 27 from Whiteman Air Force Base, and 22 from forward operating locations including Diego Garcia, releasing more than 1.5 million pounds of munitions across 600 separate target strikes. Targets included air defense sites, command bunkers, and direct attacks on Iraqi Republican Guard formations near Baghdad. The B-2 operated from specialized climate-controlled hangars at Diego Garcia and RAF Fairford in the United Kingdom that had been constructed specifically for this purpose. 8 years later, March 2011. Operation Odyssey Dawn. The United Nations authorized enforcement of a no-fly zone over Libya to prevent the Gaddafi regime from attacking civilians. 3 B-2 Spirits flew directly from Whiteman Air Force Base to Libya and back, a round trip of approximately 11,000 miles. Each aircraft dropped 4,500-pound JDAM bombs, destroying 45 of Libya's hardened aircraft shelters in a single night. No other aircraft in the coalition could have done this. The mission required the combination of intercontinental range, stealth to penetrate Libyan air defenses, and sufficient payload to destroy meaningful numbers of targets in a single pass. The B-2 checked all 3 boxes alone. In January 2017, 2 B-2 Spirits flew from Whiteman on 33-hour round-trip missions to strike an ISIS training camp near Sirte, in southern Libya. 108 500-pound precision JDAMs were dropped. Approximately 85 militant fighters were killed. The aircraft required 4 to 5 aerial refuelings each, drawing on tanker assets from 3 separate combatant commands. No civilian casualties were reported. October 2024 brought the Yemen deployment. B-2 Spirit bombers staged from Royal Australian Air Force Base Tyndall in the Northern Territory of Australia and conducted strikes against Houthi weapons storage facilities in Yemen, specifically targeting 5 underground weapons depots near Sa'ada. The strikes used massive ordnance penetrators, one of the earliest uses of the weapon in a combat theater outside the subsequent Iran operations. The strike served both an immediate tactical purpose and a strategic signaling purpose, demonstrating to Iran that the United States was willing and able to use its most capable conventional penetrating weapons against underground targets. June 2025. Operation Midnight Hammer, the largest B-2 Spirit strike mission in American military history. 13 B-2 bombers took off from Whiteman simultaneously, 6 flying west toward Guam as decoys, 7 flying east. 18 hours of eastward flight, multiple aerial refuelings, a rendezvous with F-22 and F-35 escort and support aircraft in the eastern Mediterranean, and then the strike. 7 B-2s, 14 GBU-57's Massive Ordnance Penetrators, 12 on Fordow, 2 on Natanz. Tomahawk cruise missiles from a submerged Ohio-class guided missile submarine striking Isfahan. No Iranian air defense system detected or fired on the strike package. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs General Dan Kane said it at the Pentagon briefing the next day. Iran's fighters did not fly, and it appears that Iran's surface-to-air missile systems did not see us. Throughout the mission, we retain the element of surprise. February 28, 2026. Operation Epic Fury begins. 4 B-2 Spirit aircraft fly round-trip from Whiteman the first night of the campaign, dropping 2,000-pound GBU-31 JDAMs on Iran's hardened ballistic missile storage facilities. Satellite imagery the next morning shows collapsed tunnel entrances at Tabriz North Missile Base and other underground complexes. The B-2 had opened the ground campaign of Epic Fury. March 1, B-2 strikes on IRGC command infrastructure in Tehran, the Imam Ali Compound, IRGC Aerospace Force Headquarters at Lavizin, and the Sepah Command Complex struck in the campaign's second night. March 17, CENTCOM releases imagery of 2 B-2s at Whiteman preparing to launch on another Iran mission. The images show unexplained white rectangles sealed onto the aircraft's leading edges, prompting speculation from defense analysts about possible new sensor installations, electronic warfare modifications, or test markings from the ongoing B-21 Raider program. CENTCOM declines to explain. The mission launches from Missouri and the B-2s fly to Iran and back. The white rectangles remain unexplained. Late March through early April, B-2 strikes continue against Iran's defense industrial base, underground missile depots, command bunkers, and IRGC command infrastructure across multiple provinces. April 3rd, an F-15E is shot down over southwestern Iran. The rescue operation begins. And on the night of April 4th, going into April 5th, while 155 American aircraft are committed to recovering a downed colonel from the Zagros Mountains, the B-2 flies to Tehran and the IRGC headquarters underground is obliterated. The future of the B-2 Spirit is already flying. The Northrop Grumman B-21 Raider, which made its first flight in November 2022 and entered low-rate initial production in 2023, is the stealth bomber designed to replace it. The B-21 carries forward the flying wing philosophy in a platform designed with greater maintainability, lower operating costs, and an open architecture computing system built for continuous integration of new sensors, weapons, and networking capabilities as they become available. The Air Force plans to acquire at least 100 B-21 Raiders, and eventually more, replacing the B-2 fleet, which currently stands at approximately 19 operational aircraft. The B-2 is expected to remain in frontline service through the early to mid-2030s, alongside the B-21, as the new aircraft accumulates sufficient numbers to enable transition. In 2024, a $7 billion contract was awarded to Northrop Grumman to sustain and modernize the B-2 through that service life, covering defensive management system enhancements, electronic warfare improvements, digital mission planning upgrades, and systems integration work. When the B-2 finally retires, it will leave a combat record that is without parallel in the history of aviation. It will have served in 6 conflicts across 4 continents, flown missions lasting up to 44 hours from the American heartland, dropped weapons that no other aircraft can carry, and penetrated air defense systems ranging from Cold War-era radar to the most sophisticated integrated air defenses Iran has assembled. It will have done all of this without ever being successfully detected, tracked, or engaged by an adversary in combat. And it will leave behind the story of a night in April 2026 when it flew from Missouri to Tehran while SEAL Team 6 was pulling an American colonel out of a mountain crevice in the Zagros and reduced the headquarters of the organization that had put him there to rubble. That story is what the B-2 was built for. Not just the penetration, not just the payload, the precision of moment. The knowledge that when the door is open, however briefly, you can walk through it without being seen, do what needs to be done, and be gone before anyone knows you were there. Jack Northrop's flying wing was set aside in 1949 by men who thought it was an idea ahead of its time. They were right. It was just not ahead by 30 years. It was ahead by 70.